Hi, my name is Angie Lee, and I'm the head of brand and marketing for Industrious. But I'm here to talk to you a little bit about a collaboration we did with LL Bean, which was an exciting opportunity for us to really understand what working outside teaches us about working inside. Industrious is actually one of the largest premium co-working and flexible workplace providers in the United States. We are committed to delivering an amazing day at work to our thousands of members across our 50 locations across the country. And over the past 5 years since we were founded, we've helped over 2,000 companies actually really grow and scale their businesses. And what makes it really interesting, what's really helped us stand apart, is the fact that we can look across all of these 2,000 companies to really distill what delivers on an amazing day at work. And really, the secret sauce boils down to two things: our ability to marry gorgeous, high-quality spaces that are designed really to drive productivity. It's not just about creating beautiful spaces, but about spaces that drive productivity. And the other is to marry that with the workplace experience that really makes people proud and excited to come to work. So we're talking about scale in terms of office space, but then individualizing the workplace experience. And we're incredibly proud of what we've done. We have amazing spaces. This is actually our space out of Chicago in Fulton Market. And of course, we have our Century City location out in LA. And what we've done is we've done an amazing job of flooding all of our spaces with so much light and really filling it with green to really bring the outside in, because we've all read the same research that having a lot of sunlight, having a lot of greenery can actually increase productivity in the workplace. But really, at the end of the day, what all of our 50 locations share is the fact that they're inside office buildings, right? So as much as we want to bring all of this outside in, we're still inside. And so when LL Bean came to us and asked us, what would it look like if we were to redefine what an office looks like when you actually have no walls? We really jumped at this opportunity to really push ourselves to ask ourselves, if we're really challenging ourselves to deliver an amazing day at work, what can we learn from working outside that could actually influence the way we design spaces inside? So, thus was the LL Bean Being Outsider at Work campaign. So this past summer, what we did is we built these amazing outdoor pods. These pods were designed using some basic principles around the building itself, but then what we did was we peppered in the principles that really drive productivity and effectiveness in an industrious space. And then we took this pod on the road. So first we started out in New York City, Madison Square Park. Typical tenant doing a typical conference call, except he's doing it on a stationary bike, right? And you see a bunch of people on the corner over here who was kind of sitting around, milling around outside. We went to Boston. We went to Philadelphia. And we went to Madison, Wisconsin, because why else? Why wouldn't you go to Madison, Wisconsin? So in the course of taking this thing on the road to 4 locations, 3 to 4 days in each location, we spoke to over 1,500 people who showed up to really take advantage of this opportunity to work outside. And we learned some really interesting things that really reinforced some of the principles we knew already deliver an amazing day at work, but also then helped us translate what working outside could tell us about creating productive workplaces inside. So because these talks always end up with 3 takeaways, I'm going to walk you through 3 of those ideas. So first and foremost, working outdoors really drives productivity indoors. Now, to some of you guys, this may be a little bit counterintuitive, because when you think about going outside when you're at work, you think of it as a break from productivity. I'm going to take a walk to clear my head. I'm going to get away from my desk. You take a walk when you go out for lunch. Those are the moments in which you're thinking about that as being a break. But let's take a step back and ask ourselves, what defines a modern workplace today? What's fundamentally changed the modern workplace from, say, a factory in the 1800s is the idea that we don't believe that individuals are cogs in a machine, but that our role is to really design workplaces that bring out the best in individuals. And bringing out the best in individuals means you have to offer different productivity space types throughout the day. So think about your day. You start the morning, you're a little tired, you're getting kind of settled in, you might go onto BuzzFeed, you're sitting at your desk, right? You go to get coffee, to kind of stand up, walk around, you go to the kitchen, and all of a sudden you're interacting with your colleagues. You then have to go to a conference room and so on. And so what you see is these spaces can either contribute to your productivity, or they can actually in some cases zap your productivity. So if you take an average person's energy levels throughout the day, you might see some patterns. So here's an anonymized individual over a 5-day period, and what you see is, okay, so every morning they would sit down at their desk, and you would see that they're not really a morning person, right? They start out and their energy level starts to climb. And then essentially they go through lunch, and then they end up going to a conference room, and the conference room either zaps their energy because meetings zap introverts' energy, or because it's just later in the day and your sugar levels are dropping or increasing or you're getting a little sleepy, and then you go back to your desk. And so the idea is that if you actually design a space for humans, you're designing them not to force humans into the spaces that they're in, but to give as many opportunities for individuals to kind of work in those spaces. Now, what happens if we start to treat the outdoors not as a novelty, as this crazy idea that we're encouraging people to work outside, but we simply treat it as another productivity space type? All of a sudden, you're like, oh, I'm going to have my conference meeting, I'm going to go out do this, and I'm going to have a meeting outside. If you go to SF, people in SF are notorious for their walking meetings, and that's kind of the same thing, right? If you're already going to be having a one-on-one with someone, why not go outside, get a little bit of the energy in, and get the endorphins running? But if you start to think of it as simply another productivity space type, and not as a novelty, then you start to think of it as, wow, what could the impact be? So you take that same person, and you stick them outside for a little bit, and all of a sudden you start to see spikes in energy that actually exist once they return back indoors. Now, all of you guys know this. You take a walk at lunch and you come back feeling refreshed. How amazing does it feel? It feels like it can give you the energy to get through the rest of the day. But that brings it to the second principle, is that simply being outdoors is not enough, right? Delivering an amazing day at work, what we have found across all of our members, is that you really give folks the energy or the environment to feel truly productive. So you even just take a moment to think about what makes an amazing good day for you. It might be that you felt proud about the accomplishments that you achieved, or that you felt incredibly productive and you got a lot of things done. If you're a checklist person, you're checking things off, right? So let's have some honest talk. Landlords, a while back, you guys caught on to the idea that being outdoors is a really great idea, and so you built these things, right? And this all of a sudden was your outdoor space. Hard surfaces, completely rigid. I mean, you spend 2 minutes eating a bad pizza out there and you're ready to go back inside, right? And so landlords started putting these up outside in these pavilions, and then they said, well, no one uses them. It's not a good use of my time or energy. So therefore, this willy-nilly stuff about creating outdoor workspaces is just a fad, right? But what we found in working with LLB and creating this space is that in the same things that you need indoors, you need outdoors if you're going to make those outdoor spaces productive. So if you look at the way that we design these spaces, you have a mix of task seating and you have soft seating. So are you being heads down and working on that memo that you owe your boss, or are you having a conversation to further the relationship you have with a colleague? Do you have a convening space where you and your team can stand around? Do you have a whiteboard where you can actually collaborate and kind of be on the same page by putting things up on a screen? Is there fast, reliable Wi-Fi? I mean, anyone who's been stuck in an airport with no Wi-Fi knows that without Wi-Fi in this modern age, it's a little hard to be productive. And most specifically is just the screen-friendly shade. I mean, if you think about using a laptop outside, the one thing that gets in the way is glare. And if you have an old school, I mean, this compared to this is obviously a completely different experience. And so what this tells us is that, yes, people want to be outside, but in order to be outside, you actually need to have a space that's designed for productivity outside. This brings us to our third principle, which reinforces what many of us already know, is that outdoor amenities can create an outsized workplace experience. No, in the course of going on the road with LL Bean, we had 1,500 people show up, and I mean, the response was overwhelming. We had teams show up to hold their weekly check-ins outside. We had people coming up to us saying, I feel so refreshed, I can go back and, kind of really work. But what was really interesting is a lot of the team members, the individuals that came to us, had smaller offices. They came from smaller companies. And they were so excited to have a novel experience, but to be able to leave their smaller offices to come outside. And so when you zoom out a bit and you take our installation in Philadelphia, which is in the middle of the park, what you see all around it are big office buildings, right? And so imagine if you were a landlord and you have large office buildings around it. It's just a very small leap forward to think of it as a campus, right? It's really the difference. When you want to brag about having a campus, it's about activating the outdoor spaces and the common areas. And what we're seeing more and more is more landlords are recognizing that by partnering, by using your outdoor spaces and activating your common areas, you can actually optimize the tenant experience, but also increase revenue, right? Here you have a rendering of the partnership that so Industrious is working with Blackstone and EQ in order to reposition the Howard Hughes campus out in LA. And essentially what that is it is a reinvention of what the modern campus looks like. And what we're doing is we're building out entire outdoor spaces. You see over here is we're moving some of the walls completely and putting in glass doors, so you're bringing the outside in. We're creating all these areas. Everything is going to be Wi-Fi optimized. Everything is going to be designed for a truly mobile workplace. Now, LA is the perfect place for this, where you have, sunshine all the time. And so what we've designed is really a campus that can reflect that coastal lifestyle, but then also just use all of the available real estate to create a truly modern workplace campus. So what does that look like? So you notice here you have convening spaces here, like we talked about. You have task seating back here with tables and chairs. You have open places where people can walk and talk. There's a lot of variety of spaces so that even within the outdoor space, we're bringing those same principles into creating a modern workplace experience. So if we look at the outdoor areas, you can also see that the opportunities are to activate the indoor areas as well. But again, removing some of the doors and designing experiences that bring the outside in means that we get the best of both worlds. You have climate controlled, you have Wi-Fi, you have all those details that enable folks to be productive throughout. And so on reflection, if we look at what we learned going through what many people looked at perhaps as a novel stunt that we did with LL Bean, what you really can take away is that there are many principles that really define how working outdoors can help define what happens indoors. And if you go back to the ultimate question of what delivers on an amazing day at work, what we would argue is that an office with no walls actually looks like just an amazing day at work. Great. Thank you so much.